Attorney Bederow has a number of items.
Mr. Bederow.
Thank you, Judge.
Honestly, go fuck yourself, sir. You don't say that, okay? You don't lose a trial where a jury acquits someone and finds them overwhelmingly not guilty and say, I gave my sincere obligation to look into this, and I'm telling you all I saw when she's guilty. Again, respectfully, go fuck yourself.
Swear again like that. That was, no, I mean, whatever. That was, I shouldn't have done that.
A few moments later.
You, as a prosecutor, have got to be out of your fucking mind.
Little burgers, little sausage, a little that macaroni, a little homemade mac and cheese. How you doing? A little watermelon, right? Why can't they enjoy that for a little bit?
Hey, Blues Clues, motherfucker.
Good morning, Mr. Bederow.
Good morning. You're never going to let me live down the swearing. I shouldn't have done that again. But, you know, at the moment, it was appropriate, I suppose.
It was my favorite thing that I have ever bared witness to. I loved it. I love the passion.
Well, it was a very inappropriate statement that the prosecutor made after the acquittal, but the language choice was a little extreme. But okay, whatever, it's there.
I just wanted to tell you that you bring me so much joy, and that for you to be here, for you to answer my bat call and say, yes, Kimberly Jean, we can talk all the SHIT on a Sunday morning. You've got your coffee. I have a Red Bull in a mason jar, and we're ready to go. Rock and roll. It's been a week. Cheers. Salud in the Commonwealth.
No, the timing is good because we've got a little time to kill. We're going to pick up the boy today who's coming back from his teen tour after 3 weeks. So got to hit the airport. So, you know, our quiet house is about to get loud again. So happy to kill these last couple hours before the insanity starts again.
That is so cool. When you had said to me, I'm going to pick up the boy, I'm like, oh, I'm thinking like, I didn't know if Lola and Winnie were getting a brother. I didn't know what was happening because your teenage son is traveling abroad, kicking ass and taking names. And that's amazing. Like how incredible for a summer program.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting weekend. Yesterday, we went to visiting day for the daughter's sleepaway camp, which is, you know, an interesting day. And today we bring the other one home after 3 weeks in Costa Rica, which is pretty exotic for a kid to do. And then we're, again, just back to, or at least half back to crazy home. It's been weird around here for 3 weeks.
It's so weird. My girls always went to a camp, sleepaway camp in Vermont. This is their first, they're grown-ups now. Like I want them to go back next summer for like as intern counselors. They're called CITs, counselors in training. But I remember the first summer that they were both gone, and they did 4 weeks, and I was like, we want to talk about me clutching my pearls.
My parents used to ship me away. I wasn't a big fan of it. I originally went to some camp in Maine. And then I ended up at a camp in right on the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border in Amesbury near Salisbury. For a little while. And then, you know, the summer became going to Cape Cod and places like that, which I enjoyed much better. But no, she wants to go, and she went, and she's having a great time doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It's a girls' camp, so you know they're all like crazy girls, and then they all freak out when everyone's leaving yesterday because you know there's still another 3 or 4 weeks to go.
Yeah, I did. I went to Camp Wabasso, which was a Girl Scout camp in Bradford, New Hampshire, and I did horseback riding. Like, and I would go up there for it was 2 weeks because like we couldn't afford, you know, staying up for longer than that. And then I would go down to my Nana's house in West Dennis in the summer. So that was like our summers.
I remember they shipped me originally to a place called Camp Kingswood in Bridgeton, Maine, which I think is like the middle of nowhere, Maine. And then I went to Camp Bowercrest, which is what I think it's still around probably. It's like a boys sports camp.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, no, it's fun for like a month, but you know, the whole summer, hell no. It's
No,
no.
no.
I'm not a summer camp person, but
Well, and just for like my girls, I'm like, no, you're going to give back to the teenagers who helped take care of you. Now you're going to take care of the next gen of, these kids that are very lucky to be able to go and have those experiences. Because I remember personally, like them becoming my best friends. I like Jimmy makes fun of me, Auntie Deb will make fun of me and say that I am a horse girl, but I'm not, but I am. Like, because a horse, like I'll cry looking at one, Mr. Bederow. If I feel connected, like
well,
the eyes of a horse is like life changing.
well, we where we went, our daughter goes to one of these camps in like the middle of godforsaken middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, which there's like a ton of camps out there. If you're in the New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia area, they all seem to go out there, and they have horse riding there. I mean, there were horses there.
We did English, yeah.
Go on, they do all kinds of stuff. It's very interesting. It's more advanced than I think it was back in our day. I don't even think our camp had a pool. I don't remember. I mean, we had a lake, had to go down a hill, and then the other side of the lake was New Hampshire. It was anyway.
Oh, sorry.
Well, the 1985 camp stories now. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't born in 1985, so I wasn't at that camp, but I was there in the late 90s, just doing all the things. But today you are my brunch mate, and we are going to just go over like what topics in the Commonwealth that blew my mind, and I haven't seen you. I go, oh my God, he's so awesome for you and Mrs. Bederow to have the best time, hang out with each other, watch shows. Oh, isn't that crazy? Like when the kids aren't there and you're like, just going to supper and do whatever you want to do. Oh, love it. And yeah. I know you were busy. Also, you were here too, or in Massachusetts you had to go for work for Aiden, but and you're busy with your other clients as well, but to have that time when you get home to like literally just hang out with each other is super cool.
And it's over.
And it's over. And now you got to go pick up. Yeah. I hope you loved it. Maybe next summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to go into I want to go into right off the top the grand jury scandal. The scandal that took Twitter, the Twitter lawyers, everyone is a critic. Everyone knows everything. And for people who said that people that supported Karen Reed were conspiracy theorists, and then to see the conspiracy theories, in my opinion, that popped the heck up on the World Wide Web was bananas to me. You are the person who I trust, who I know is educated, that this is actually your area of expertise. You know shit. You have 30 plus years of experience in prosecution.
I'm not that old. Jesus, not quite. Almost, but not quite.
25, whatever. So, like you were in college.
Fair enough.
All right. Okay. So not that old. You're not that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. But like, this is your jam. So can you go over or just tell me your overall thoughts on Jessica Leslie from Drake-It, who allegedly was talking shit to her girlfriends?
There was an article that I saw, I think in the Boston Globe or somewhere else, or someone posted something a week ago, whatever it was, that said a grand juror who sat on the federal case had been criminally charged with leaking grand jury information. And that was interesting. And so initially I said, wow, that's interesting. That potentially, who knows where that could lead, what that could lead to. That comment was as a lawyer who's interested in criminal procedure, criminal law, cases of interest. Obviously, anything tangentially related to Karen's case is interesting to a lot of people, including myself.
Yeah.
No more, no less. I just said that's interesting, and that may lead to problems for other people. May being the operative word. Who the hell knows? Based on what I had gleaned at that point, that was not meant to be with any inside information or lack thereof, or even initially in contemplation of representing someone who's related to the Karen situation. And that's kind of where it all went a little weird and sideways. But, you know, grand jurors are bound to secrecy, as are grand jury wardens, as are court reporters. Basically, every single person in a grand jury, except for one, the witness. A witness has a right, the First Amendment right, to go out if they really want to and go on the courthouse steps and say, I spoke in a grand jury and this is what I said.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't do that, and why a lot of people wouldn't want you to do that. But there is a difference between a witness expressing their First Amendment right to say what they said versus a grand juror gossiping to non-grand jurors about what happened. That can be a federal crime. It's not a common one. It's not something you see every day. And when word came out that it was the grand jury that heard I don't want to say the Karen case, because that's not what it was, but heard about the investigation into the handling of it. You know, everyone knows it came out at trial.
Yeah.
That there was a federal grand jury proceeding. That certainly makes it more interesting. So again, people start speculating what's happening with this, that, who knows? Then it came out that the grand juror was not indicted, but was going to plead guilty on what's called an information. That's just an accusatory instrument that's drafted by law enforcement outlining the crimes. It's not an indictment. Ultimately, you need an indictment, or you need a waiver of indictment. You know, a defendant can waive the right to be indicted, and you would do that if you are negotiating and pleading guilty. So the way federal prosecution generally works when it's not a secret, I mean, there are certain types of cases where they indict in full secrecy, the target doesn't necessarily know, and then they come out, and kick your door down at 5 a.m. You might see that in organized crime sweeps or cases involving very dangerous people. But when you're talking about garden variety, nonviolent federal investigations that may or may not involve other people, it is a very commonplace thing for FBI agents to knock on your door, announce themselves, say, we're here with the FBI and we want to talk to you about something. Many times they will even just leave a card and actually encourage you to get a lawyer and say, call us or call this AUSA, assistant U.S. attorney, so we can talk about things. They do things very differently than state law enforcement. And oftentimes when that happens, people will get a lawyer, will call the assistant U.S. attorney, talk about what's going on. They may be served with a grand jury subpoena. It's a common tactic. We're going to compel you to testify, this and that. And you play this dance with them. Long story short, when you're going to negotiate an early deal, it is very common to discuss what the parameters of that might involve in the early stages, and involve what would be called a civilized surrender on a certain date. You just walk in and voluntarily surrender, and it will involve a waiver of indictment, and you plead guilty to an information, which oftentimes will not occur on the same day that you surrender, and you go from there. And that's what happened here. So when this, whatever her name is, I don't even remember what her name is, the grand juror who
Jessica Leslie,
at this point has admitted, leaking grand jury information. Showed up in court and was arraigned on an information, and the court was informed very early in the process that we're going to set this down for a plea. What that tells you is that the agents reached out to her lawyer reached out to the assistant U.S. attorney, negotiated this, came in, going to plead guilty and waive indictment. That's part one of this. Part two of this, what came out apparently from what I read, is that there is, you know, what is called an agreed upon sentence of essentially time served. Now, an agreed upon sentence in federal court is a little different than anywhere else because there are these very nasty, nasty things in federal court called the federal sentencing guidelines. And each federal offense, you know, you have to score out under the federal sentencing guidelines somebody's, whether they have any what are called criminal history points, what the base offense level is, whether there are aggravating factors or mitigating factors. Acceptance of responsibility is worth a couple of points. Again, it's like literally scoring it out, and then the guidelines essentially spit out a number, and that's the proposed sentence under the federal sentencing guidelines that ordinarily will spit out a range unless there are what they call variances or downward and upward departures. It gets all confusing. It's not important today. But the point is, in this apparent situation, the U.S. attorney and the defense agreed that she ought to be sentenced to basically time served. Now, that's always pending court approval. And you'll see it in any federal plea agreement. The court is going to still score out the guidelines. There's still going to be what's called a PSR, or pre-sentence report, by the U.S. probation department, what their view of the guidelines is. It's very different than state court. It's much more complicated. The point of the story is the U.S. attorney and defense, right around the date of plea, agreed that she ought to get time served. Now, so what I then, upon learning that, someone else had posted online a waiver of indictment, and that apparently this was a significant thing, and oh God, everyone who likes Karen Reed is going to get indicted for being involved in grand jury leaks because something big happened today. The defendant Leslie waived indictment and pled guilty to an information, which again happens every single day in a federal court, in which somebody is agreeing to plead guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And what I had said was, that's normal. That happens every day.
Right.
What is not normal is apparently the part that triggered a few people and made others feel the need to be, the ombudsman of the internet and correct, or at least demand self-disclosures of apparent involvement or not. The point is this: it's not common in federal court for somebody who is going to be a cooperating witness. I'm talking generally. I'm not talking about people I represent or anyone else involved with. I'm talking normal federal practice.
Right.
Okay? If you're going to cooperate in an ongoing investigation, it is extraordinarily uncommon that the U.S. attorney would, in essence, say, we promise to recommend time served the day you plead guilty within a week of your federal surrender and arrest. That's not how cooperation works, okay? Cooperation works with an open-ended, you need to do something, and then we'll consider doing it if you do. And you would get, in federal sentencing, there's a special term for it. If you give what's called substantial assistance, substantial cooperation under the federal sentencing guidelines, it's guideline 5K1.1, which is where the U.S. attorney will tell the court what a good boy or good girl the cooperating defendant was, and how substantial their substantial assistance was, and that warrants a lot of treatment and giving them what they want. Okay. Even if the guidelines, for example, federal guidelines usually come in months. If the guidelines called for 6 to 12 months, the government's going to write a 5K1 letter and say she should get no time due to her assistance, substantial assistance, acceptance of responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And a federal district judge says, okay, fine, I make the following findings, and you do it. That would be normal in a cooperation situation. All I simply said was, this person is already being told by the U.S. attorney we want you to get time served immediately and publicly. And there's no condition of cooperation that's built into that agreement. There is no range of sentence that will remain open other than, as there is in every federal plea agreement, there's always the caveat clause that the district judge has to sign off on this. And if the district judge wants to give you a sentence within the range of the guidelines, that's considered legally a presumptively valid sentence because the guidelines call for it. If this sounds confusing, I'm sorry, but the bottom line was, all I was doing was saying, if you're running around on Twitter posting a plea agreement, which includes a waiver of indictment by a federal defendant who was essentially promised pending court approval time served, that happens every day. And what doesn't happen every day is that somebody is cooperating when they get that agreement. How that turned into, I profess to know something or not know something about a particular person I represent, or why I'm somehow not qualified as a lawyer to just say, I think there's some misinformation or misinterpretation being presented online. Okay. And I even made a joke in that tweet that, notwithstanding Twitter and such, which was like, people are just saying things that they don't really understand. How that turned into, I should all of a sudden have every tweet I ever make in my life again have a disclaimer that says, just bear in mind, if I ever give any legal analysis, I represent Turtle Boys. So take that for what it's worth. So I don't understand that. I don't understand all of the just back and forth and speculation. The point is, we have no idea what's going on with the juror who pled guilty. But to be clear, pleading guilty on an information and waiving an indictment is as boring and everyday as federal court gets. And to get time served is not, and promise that pending court approval right away in a publicly filed document, by the way, not sealed, not out of the public interest, would be an extraordinarily strange way for the feds to be using a cooperating witness. That's all I said. And you see you see other people talking about like tapped phones and things like that. You also, again, you need to know how federal court works. The federal wiretapping statute, which lawyers Title III from the 1968 Crime Act, it requires so much effort to put in an affidavit to a federal district judge to get authorized to get a wiretap. And in order to get one, you have to demonstrate that there are no other alternative means and that we've exhausted every method otherwise of gathering evidence such that with all the cause we have to believe that there are crimes committed, we need a wiretap, okay? You can't just go get a federal wiretap if you're a prosecutor in a federal court the way you and I buy a carton of milk. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
That's why you see it in organized crime cases and other things. It's very hard, okay? Courts don't favor that. Also, you would have to get them renewed every 30 days. You'd have to show it's going. And then when a wiretap exhausts, anyone who's picked up on a wiretap has to be notified, okay? You get a letter from a prosecutor saying, this is to advise you when the wiretap is over that your communications were picked up, okay? Eventually, a target would have to be told that too, eventually. So everyone should just take a real deep breath about what happened with the grand juror. Maybe there's something else going on, who knows? But it may just be
a nothing burger.
Well, I won't say nothing. I mean, leaking secret federal proceedings can't happen. I mean, the federal system can't function if private business is being leaked. But having said that, you may just very well be dealing with a situation where the feds felt they had to slap someone on the wrist and send a message, a public message. But at the end of the day, if a grand juror using poor judgment is just kind of yakking with friends or telling people things, not everybody has to go to jail for every little thing.
Right.
Okay? Now, maybe there's more to it. I don't know. But if there is, they're doing it in a very weird way. So if you read tea leaves, it would suggest that this may just be what it is. The other piece of misinformation that I think people don't fully understand is, if a grand juror leaks sensitive information that is criminal to do so, it doesn't translate that the person they tell has committed a crime because their ears heard something that someone else wasn't supposed to say. It's still America. You can't just be charged with a crime because somebody blurts out to you something that happened. Okay. Unless you're showing evidence of the receiver of information conspiring with the person to get the information and whatever, people who hear things that are confidential don't get charged in federal court because somebody told them something. It doesn't work that way.
No.
There has to be a hell of a lot more going on. Bottom line is, I guess we'll see in due course, but I think people are getting way too excited about it. And I truly have no clue why anybody would write a 10-page treatise about my comment and indicate that I'm somehow shilling for someone. I am a lawyer. I do comment on cases. I'm interested in this. And I think everyone knows who I am in terms of representing a certain client anyway. I just found that to be bizarre that there was some suggestion that making a comment in response to somebody posting a waiver of indictment suggesting that that was a big deal, somehow correcting that and saying, actually, it's not a big deal. And this would be a really strange way to use a federal cooperator, notwithstanding Twitter and such. I didn't think it would be anything more or less than that, but apparently it was whatever.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for breaking that down for me, because when I was reading it, again, very limited, just as a layperson with a little bit of a oomph in me and a desire to learn. So I'm reading all the documents. I was like, okay, the media, in my opinion, sensationalized it, from the Globe and local news being like, hey, this is a Karen Reed, grand juror, when we know now, which I didn't know previously, that grand jurors sit for multiple cases, Mr. Bederow. It's not in the federal system, right? So it was almost, or it was a year or 18 months, I believe, that this grand juror was active. And so there were multiple other cases. So yes, that this person sat on the Karen Reed federal grand jury, the investigation into the investigation, not state. Like, what? I don't understand how that was like automatically correlated to specifically the Karen Reed case versus something like a CDL case or another case that grand juror sat on.
I have no idea, other than to say generally, and especially in larger jurisdictions, and a federal, grand jury sitting in Boston is going to cover basically, all of, you can imagine, the district of Massachusetts. There's only one district in Massachusetts, so like it covers the whole state, as opposed to New York has a Manhattan and Westchester, or the Southern District of New York, Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island, or the Eastern. There's a Western District in Buffalo and a Northern District where I worked in law school, which covers like Albany, Syracuse, that area. But in a larger jurisdiction, a federal grand jury that gets impaneled for a certain period of time almost certainly is going to hear multiple cases unless it's been specifically impaneled for one purpose. And that's the same in state court too. And that's why, and having presented hundreds of cases to grand juries in state court in the old days, there are times where you can start on one case and you don't finish. And then you come back on another, and then you have to come back, several days later, and you will have the grand jury you'll remind them we're here on this case, and you have them pick a code word. So do you remember? Does everybody remember what we're doing? The idea that it had to be about Karen Reed, I don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I have no idea what she was leaking. I haven't read all the actual documents that were published in her plea, but I'm assuming it doesn't even say, as opposed to just leaking information, because the feds
From a
aren't
specific date range. Yeah.
they're not going to put it in the charging instrument because it's not supposed to be public. That's the whole point and why it's a crime to leak grand jury information. But does it have to do with Karen's case, the CDL case that I heard about? Both? Who knows? I mean, I don't know if it's a situation where the grand juror is just telling a friend of hers, hey, I'm on a grand jury, and today we heard stuff about a driver's license, and today they were doing something to do with that Karen Reed thing. I don't know. I have no idea. But I don't blame the media for reporting that it was the grand jury that did in fact hear the Karen Reed case, because let's be honest.
It's the biggest story. Yeah.
A hell of a lot more interesting to the reading public than if it's just a grand juror leaked information, which is interesting in and of itself, but not that interesting.
Agreed. Now, could you educate me on what the steps mean? Because the federal government is wild, and you were talking about like I saw in the documents that it said she was a 14, right? And then because she had never had, or the charge was a 14, right? Like a step 14. Then
Base offense. That means no, it's fine. So federal sentencing, again, you have to merge various charts, and it's convoluted as hell, and even to lawyers, all the time. Computing federal sentencing guidelines is hell. Okay. And it's very common to have the defense busts out the chart, the U.S. attorney busts out the chart, and then the probation does their own, and you could have 3 different numbers, and then you could have a hearing, a full-blown hearing about whether things apply. So basically, the way it would work is every defendant has a number of criminal history points, ranging from 0 to whatever. And obviously, if you've never been in trouble, you have 0. And in federal sentencing, you want the lower score, the better. The bigger the number, the bigger the prison sentence. Okay. So if you have 0 criminal history points, that's good if you're the defendant. If you have a history, you start with more points, which are going to add to the overall score. Every offense in the federal code also has what's called the base offense level. And again, low is good. I mean, so if you have a sophisticated crime that's very violent, it's going to be a lot more points. And of course, the sentence already gets higher. So you have the criminal history points, you have the base offense level points, and then you have all kinds of things which could aggravate, if you will. If there was a victim that died, it could add points. If it was particularly heinous, if the amount of loss, in a fraud case, you add points if the amount of loss was this much. Add only lesser if it was a smaller fraud. So you're adding and adding and adding. And then there are times where you can take away points. Are you presuming that there's going to be acceptance of responsibility? I mean, if you go in and demonstrate, you admit what you did, you allocute properly, you're going to show remorse, you can get up to like 3 points reduced. It all goes back and forth. And it's complicated. It's really hard to compute, but that's how federal sentencing is. I don't know what her guidelines even score out to, but it said
14, and then it went down to 10 because she had no criminal record and blah, 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 blah. And then, but that's just the suggestion, because like you said, right, this needs to all be approved by the judge on Monday.
It does, but I don't even know what her guidelines would come out to. Like if it puts her in like the 0 to 6 month range, let's say. But again, those are the guidelines. Okay, the guidelines are presumptively what applies, but there are reasons why a court can go above or below, or what's called a variance in legal parlance, or if there's substantial cooperation, that, downward departures, upward departures, these are all terms of art that have specific meaning in federal court. But the takeaway from the plea agreement to everyone who's so excited about all of this is that the government, and yes, in federal court, they are called the government, not in state court. Oh, you heard that slip a few times in Karen's second trial for obvious reasons. But the government, in this case, has already said, we're recommending time served. Okay.
Yes.
That's the takeaway. That's the story. They want this done. Out she goes. She's going to be sentenced, and we don't even want her to get a real sentence. Okay. Again, if there's cooperation to be done here, if there's a need, you've given up the leverage and control, and there's no cooperation that's built into that agreement. It's not even a sealed agreement. It's a public.
That's
agreement.
crazy. That is, for me, that's the ding, ding, ding.
Yes. And look, like, for example, and I'm not speculating what's going on in Farwell, but look at it. That guy, according to the public docket, hasn't been in court over a year. Now, that ought to give people alarm bells about what's going on behind the curtain. Okay. That's not normal. That's an incarcerated defendant who has voluntarily, waived his right to speedy trial and to be present in court for over a year. That's telling. Okay. That should tell you something may be happening. But in this case, with the juror, the grand juror, they're just basically saying, get her in, get her out, we're done. And that's a strange and bizarre way to use federal cooperation. Federal cooperation, you have a cudgel to use over someone's head, right? You make them work for it. You don't slap them on the wrist, tell them the case is over, and then say, remember, you promised us, on your own volition to help us out because you're a good person. That's just not how federal cooperation works. And that's all I said. Again, it doesn't mean what they're doing or not doing in this case, but this is not a normal way to do it. That's all. No more, no less.
Yeah, just saying what you think. And, with somebody as educated and professional as you, I just don't understand. I don't really get the pushback. And again, like you're saying, you never claimed and you don't have any inside information. So you're just like, hey, I'm just calling it. I am commenting on what has been provided to us. And if you're looking at the entire situation and all that surrounds it, you're having some bells go off that say like, oh, well, that would be weird if it was this.
This is not rocket science. You don't have to get it from, Turtle Boy's biased lawyer. You can ask any lawyer who does this for a living and has represented clients who play this dance. Again, the federal dance is a very different dance than the one you get in state court. I mean, any type of case like this in federal court tends to be the same way. The FBI agents knock on the door. They give you a card. They encourage you to get a lawyer. You get a lawyer. Your lawyer calls the agents, finds out who the U.S. attorney is, talks to the U.S. attorney. The U.S. attorney says, will you accept a grand jury subpoena? They say, let's talk. Let's have you come in. The train's going to leave the station. If you plead guilty now, you get acceptance. You do this pre-indictment. You waive indictment, da-da-da-da-da. That's how it works. But I've also had, I've had clients who've gotten 5K1 letters and have played this dance. And when they plead guilty, it's not advertised what they're doing. And again, the sentence is left open. Okay. Cooperating witnesses in federal court get sentenced after,
of course,
a larger investigation is over.
Yeah.
Not before. Okay. That's how it works. That's not how it's working with the grand juror. That's all I'm saying. I have no inside information.
Yeah. And okay, like Lovey's just saying, for anybody who this is going over your head, or you're saying, well, oh, we don't know, or something, like go watch a movie, and a movie like of The Departed, or no, not The Departed, The Town. Like we know Whitey Bulger, just for an example for here, as that being a federal case, and for him being an informant. I'm just saying, I'm going around in circles here. Just, it's something that came to my mind, is like, he had to, and you always have to provide information to the government. They're not going to kiss your ass if you like, and try to give you a sweetheart deal of time served if you're in on this big, huge, in my opinion, that like what is being alleged of some sort of mastermind plan of the devious Turtle Boy or the devious Karen Reed. Like, at the end of the day, this juror likely, which I don't know, I'm just speculating on my end, was talking shit to her girlfriends. Like, you told your friends what was going on, and then you have a big mouth girlfriend who posts something on the Twitter. That's a problem. Also, you should not, I do believe though, Mr. Bederow, that there should be fines. Like $100 fine is, I don't think anyone should go to prison for that, but like, let's talk some shit. Like, if you are going to do something that is sacred and is part of the government and our our, what is it, part of our legal jurisprudence and all that other shit, like, you have to make sure that you are keeping what the judge told you sacred. You can't go around and talk. So I think $1,000 or more would have probably been more appropriate.
I mean, look, when you're a grand juror, state court as well,
Mm-hmm.
the system cannot properly function if grand jurors are leaking like sieves. Like, you can't have it. There are, you can't be tipping off targets. There can be witness safety issues. There can be any number of things. And that's why it's a crime to leak if you are a grand juror or anyone else other than a witness, again, who can only leak their own testimony, not other grand jury testimony. So this person, I'm not going to speculate who she told, what she told, but she has admitted in court and pleaded guilty to a crime in leaking sensitive information, and is now going to be a convicted criminal. That's serious. That's, if you have 37 prior convictions, maybe it's not that serious. But if you're otherwise a good, normal person who just used terrible judgment and, couldn't stop gossiping about what you were hearing when you swore an oath and you were warned by the federal district judge and the U.S. attorney that it's a crime to do this, and you just did it for whatever reason. So there were consequences, whatever, you think the sentence should or shouldn't be. I have no idea what she leaked. I have no idea why she did it. But it may very well just be that the reason why she's getting time served is because it's enough. Okay.
Yeah.
This is not the crime of the century, but she got prosecuted. She got publicly named. She's been humiliated in many ways, had to engage an attorney to deal with this.
Yeah.
There are consequences here, but that doesn't mean that every single person who gets arrested and charged with, smaller level offenses should go to jail. It doesn't mean that there's always something larger just because it involves tangentially Karen Reed. I mean, people hear the name Karen Reed and they just go crazy with this, and they assume this or that. It is more interesting. It is. I mean, the fact that it could have been that grand jury and some of the information may have related to that investigation, that does make it more interesting. But it doesn't mean that, all the Twitter lawyers and everyone else who just start going crazy over knowing what it means and start, just hyperventilating over, she waived her right to indictment. I mean, respectfully, that happens all the time. If people are negotiating a plea early in federal court, they waive indictment. That's what you do. You accept responsibility early. Right. You want to get the minus points on the sentencing guidelines. That happens every single day in federal court. That means nothing in terms of, oh my God, she's cooperating. One way or the other, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So everyone just sit back and, just wait it out, because we only know what we know. And, we'll find out what is going to happen when she goes. I believe it's court on Monday, though, right?
I don't even know.
I think it is.
Tell you the truth, don't at this point, unless somebody tells me something I don't know, like some of the, Twitter lawyers think I do know. I don't really care. I mean, again, it's just an interesting thing I saw in the news, added a legal perspective initially. Wow, who knows? Maybe this is interesting. It turns out she's pleading guilty right away. I mean, I think we did see right away that it was going to be a plea on an information, which was interesting. But when you saw the sentence was going to be essentially time served, that really takes away a lot of the likelihood where this was going to go. Right.
And I do have one question, and this is maybe too nerdy for our loveys, but I have to know. So the 11C plea, that, how I understood it, was that this is accepting guilt. It's not a no contest or a no low, right? So this is saying, yes, I did, but it's only one count, and
it is there's no contest. There's no what you would call an Anders plea, which is a rare thing where you'll sometimes see a defendant say, well, I don't want to acknowledge guilt, but I acknowledge there's sufficient evidence to convict me. That's not how it works in 99.99% of cases. And in a federal case like this, if they're negotiating an outcome with this grand juror, it's going to be very simple. You're going to admit you did it, or there isn't going to be a guilty plea. And there's a two hurdles to clear. Number one, the U.S. attorney is never going to go for that, right? But there's a larger hurdle. The district judge is going to say, you've got to be kidding me. You're pleading guilty to an information within a week, and you're telling me that, you're not admitting you did this. No, you're going to, and again, in federal court, almost everything is in writing. Okay. I know that triggers a lot of people too, lawyers who do a lot of things in writing, but that happens in sophisticated courtrooms all over the world, in America. Federal plea agreements are written, they're signed, everything is done in writing. There is no way that there would be a guilty plea within a week, if at all, in any court dealing with something like this, where the arranged outcome would be, I'm not admitting what I did. So no, of course she's going to, and not having studied in detail the agreement, I have no doubt there is a 100% full-throated admission that I leaked grand jury information that I knew I was not supposed to do, and I did it.
Absolutely. And it did say, well, in the documents that I saw, it did say that. So it's a guilty, it said pleading, willing to accept, guilty. Yeah. All right. So yes, I feel like you have absolutely broken that down for me and for our loveys to just like sit back. You're good. We're good. And, maybe, as we always say, go outside, touch some grass, to all of our Twitter lawyers, because, you're getting things wrong left and right. And it's just, when you go down a rabbit hole, think about all the rabbits that have nowhere to go. Okay. Get out of the rabbit hole. Go find a friend. Okay. Go sit down, have some, Red Bull in a mason jar, and get a life. Okay. Try to live it. I know it's difficult.
Everybody is an expert on every subject. But I mean, that's also like Twitter. It's just not healthy. I mean, everyone is an expert on everything. The
really is a cesspool.
Well, I mean, whatever. I mean, everyone's entitled to an opinion, of course. And I mean, whatever you do, but, if you're not a doctor, you probably shouldn't be, giving medical diagnoses about things that you don't understand, even if I have an opinion. I don't do that. I don't think people should do that either. I mean, you can speculate, you can have an opinion, but when you start making these grandiose statements, matter of fact, open and shut, black and white, this is what's happening, you're just making a fool of yourself. That's all. Yeah,
absolutely. So moving on from that, I did want to get your take on the Kelly diva. And Michael Cox. Is that his name? Michael Cox?
Yeah.
I from Boston Police Department, and the non-admission or the absolute distancing coming from this commissioner, right, is like beyond to me. Saying that he did not know that this person, specific words he used, Mr. Bederow, was, I didn't know that this person was associated with the Karen Reed case. Oh, when I tell you I clutched my pearls and clenched my butt cheeks, I had no idea what to even do with that. What do you make of it?
He's not good at PR and would have been better off saying nothing, because he made this scandal worse, because both he and Dever cannot be telling the truth. So you already know at least one of them is lying, probably both, about certainly different points. The idea that he was not paying attention or had any interest in Karen's case, generally speaking, and didn't, first of all, that's just hard to believe, and probably offensive. You're the commissioner of the Boston Police Department, and one of your own was dead on the lawn, and another one of your own used to work in the Canton Police, had some pretty damaging information that could have hurt the prosecution, ends up in your department, and you're telling us you have no real interest or don't have any real knowledge about it. So that in and of itself seems hard to believe. And if you do believe it, it's just kind of disturbing, his lack of interest in department morale and defending your own and all. Then when he says, I don't really know who, this officer is, he's not even mentioning her by name. They're a big department, but they're not that big.
No.
I mean, the Boston Police, it's not the NYPD, which is like, 45, 50,000 officers, but it's big, but it's not that big. But it's also big enough to know where, Dever gave a story about meeting with him.
Yes.
Okay. In the corner office. And that's a big deal. And you're still talking about one of the larger police departments in the country, even though it's not astronomically big. And for the commissioner to meet with a green rookie who, by the way, comes from the Canton Police, right? Who somehow is a witness and been subpoenaed by the defense, the so-called bad guys, if you will, from what ought to be the commissioner's view, if you believe that Karen killed John O'Keefe, one of your own, to say that they want me to be a witness and you're saying you never met her. I find that hard to believe. There's no reason for the commissioner of a police department to ever meet with just some random rookie who happens to be a defense witness in the case being tried for the murder of one of your own officers. So who do I believe in that regard? In that regard, I believe Dever, but I don't believe 80% of what she said under oath on the witness stand. So I think they're both losers in this story. No. I'm just saying, you have winners and losers. How does this look? I think Cox looks terrible. I think he looks dishonest. And if by the way, if you take him at face value, he looks clueless, and that's not much better.
Yeah.
For chief or the commissioner of the department. But then, you go back and you see the way Dever testified, her attitude, her so-called false memories and everything else. And you say so many people who appear to have been stuck on the wrong side of this case have just had their reputations just eviscerated. And I don't know if Cox has been eviscerated. He looks terrible. Dever, her career's over. I don't think she'll ever be a police officer again. I don't think she comes back.
Wow. And she's out on leave currently. So,
I get that. you know, the only thing I can say about her is she was put in a very bad situation, and then she had a choice to make. And you know, no one should envy the task of a young cop who sees something that she doesn't want to see. She told the FBI what she saw, knew it was damaging, right? Disappears from the Canton police, big shock.
Mm.
Up going to the Boston police, you know, has this conversation or whatever is, you know, wink, wink, what's happening, and then decides to put herself in this situation in court where she, in my view, is unquestionably perjuring herself about what she remembers and doesn't remember. On top of that, has this righteous indignation to blame Alan as the bad guy for doing what good lawyers do, extracting the information, staying focused, not letting this sideshow distract from what really was important here. And at this point, she appears to have lied under oath. Whether you think she did or she didn't, she lacks the disposition to be a credible witness. Is that the kind of person you want having a gun and a shield, making pinpoint instantaneous decisions on the street? Probably not. And the bottom line is they put her in an impossible position, but ultimately she did come to a fork in the road and have to make a choice. And you know, it's to me, I mean, I always think of like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, but you know, one of the critical episode names in Better Call Saul, where, you know, Jimmy McGill turns into Saul Goodman, is, you know, Bad Choice Road, right?
Yes.
Bad Choice Road.
I remember that.
And you have two choices, neither one which is good, but you know, one of them is going all the way down the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think that's where she went. And at this point, I mean, who knows? I hope, you know, she's getting whatever treatment or she needs mental health wise, if that's what this is. But I just don't picture her being an effective police officer again. Her credibility is going to be tarnished. Google is forever. Everybody knows what happened, you know, her testimony in Karen's case. You did see the letter that was submitted about the Brady list, and I always laugh because, you know, I was always told real lawyers don't write letters, but whatever. You know, I mean, the letter was effective. I mean, it puts it out there, and if I'm an attorney representing someone, and the difference between freedom and prison is Kelly Dever, then I'm coming after her credibility, bottom line. And that's why I think I think her career is over.
And, you know, so interesting, because it goes back to me hearing her say, he told me, calling Cox, saying the commissioner by name, told me to do the right thing on the stand. He told me her testimony in Commonwealth v. Reed in the second trial, and just hearing her say that they back me up and that this is what they told me to do. And it's like, babe, you didn't do the right. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you went down bad choices road.
There was a pattern in this case where when people would speak to the feds, I'm talking Karen's case, obviously, and the feds have a lot of tools that state people don't have. They have 18 USC 1001. It's a federal crime to materially mislead or lie to the feds in an official investigation. You know, the Martha Stewart crime again. That's what Martha Stewart went to jail for. And what you saw in this case, by my recollection, 3 distinct times, is when these people were confronted by the feds in real time, they did what they were supposed to do, and then nothing happened, and they came back to the state, and they felt emboldened to do it the way they wanted to do it. So you saw it with Jen McCabe, who, although she did lie to the FBI a couple of times, she came clean at the, I did make those phone calls. I did do this. But then by the time she got to trial, it was about brushing her teeth and the ice cream truck and all that other nonsense. Okay. And I never lied.
Yep.
Not true. You saw it with Kerry Roberts. She lied in the state grand jury, certainly testified inaccurately about the Google search.
Yep.
But when the feds got to her, she said, I never heard a word of it. And then when she came back to state court for the second trial, she tried to walk away from it and claim I was confused and all this other nonsense because I'm not worried about the feds anymore. And then I think most notably, you saw with Deborah. When the feds came calling, she told them what it was. But then you saw what she did at trial, where she even said that, well, it was a false memory and I didn't remember. But at the time, I believed I was telling the truth. Her answers were very crafty and clearly involved the lawyer, in my view, because she was aware enough to try to build in a defense to 1001 in her answer. Well, at the time, I believed it's true. Well, that's not intentionally misleading if you think it's true, right? I mean, federal crime is not for being inaccurate. It's not for making a mistake. It's for intentionally lying or misleading.
Right.
And saying, well, I did say that. And at the time, I thought it was, but then I realized I was confused. That's a crafty answer.
Mm-hmm.
That almost certainly came from counsel, I would think.
Yeah. Scripted. Okay.
It feels thought out. Now, again, people have to judge for themselves, but she told the FBI in pretty strong detail with strong descriptive words. I mean, a weirdly long time. And I thought this was, she's not just reporting facts. She's giving her own. Look, I don't think any serious person believes for a second that she had a false memory.
No.
I don't think.
And even the use of that as terminology is wild to me, for her to pick that, right? Not like I was mistaken, not I had a false memory.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's psychologically there's something going on and how she came up with that or the reason behind it.
And if you really, look, if you deep dive into some of the other things that she said, you can see that she just doesn't appear to be honest and credible. I have a recollection of during some of her testimony that she was even being asked, well, will you at least give us the fact that the cameras were right in front and you must have been looking at them and all of those kinds of things. And even then she was playing, I don't remember. Let me tell you something. Surveillance cameras in a police precinct, which are designed to look at areas where the prisoners are. This is not going to be rocket science. Wait for it. They're not behind you. Okay. So you have to turn around and look at the camera. They're going to be in front of you. That's
right.
That's pretty basic. And, she's arguing over that kind of stuff. And that just tells you that she's all in on the silliness. And, that testimony is on video. It's on the internet. It's all over the media.
Yeah.
She's going to be on the so-called, Massachusetts Brady list. What in New York we call the naughty list for prosecutors and cops. But I don't know how she comes back from this for the simple reason. How is she ever going to be deemed credible? Not by defense attorneys, but if you're an ethically honest prosecutor and cop, is this the person you want telling you what happened?
No,
I don't.
No, not at all. It was career changing. It was path changing. It was life changing, but you had the choice was made, and the choice was made by Kelly alone, or, either under, the direction of someone or somebody or herself.
No, it's her
she
fault.
did it.
Again, she was put in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
But when she approached Bad Choice Road, let's be clear, she's not a child.
No,
she acted like a child, but let's be honest, she is a commissioned police officer for 2 departments. She's a grown woman. duty bound, swore to uphold truth, justice, the American way, and all that. And she made a choice. She made the wrong choice, but and ultimately she alone made the choice to go down that road rather than probably be ostracized by certain members of the Boston police. And I get it. That's not easy. That would suck, that her career could be harmed by being harassed and hazed because she just told the truth. But
Right.
You're a police officer. You're held to a standard. And if you can't uphold that standard, even in tough times, then you got to go. And she's gone for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, there is nothing that I don't feel like there's a redemption arc there because the damage was so great, in my opinion.
Not in law enforcement.
Yeah.
She can look again, who knows what she'll say in a few years or where she comes back upon reflection. But as a credible law enforcement officer where people's freedom can literally be in her hands,
Yeah.
she's toast.
Agreed. Yeah, so that was what went on with her. Then I wanted to ask you thoughts on the Plymouth, the civil, Karen Reed civil suit, right? Moving forward, tucking and rolling, Plymouth, and then we find out that Judge Cannoni has been like moved, okay, rotated, if one will, to Plymouth. And I said, shut the fuck up. Not, I was blacked out because now this was weird. Judge Beverly Cannoni used to be the Raj, right? So she was the Raj up until January of this year. Why do I know this? Because I got assassinated. I got eviscerated on freaking Twitter when I was like, she's gonna be the Raj still, boppity beep bop, and they were like, shut up, Kim, you dumb bitch. And she ends up getting rotated out on January 1st. Riddle me this, Mr. Bederow. How is it like saying now that she is the Raj as of June 1st, 2025? So she was 6 months of not being the regional administrative judge. And now so when she was doing the Karen Reed trial, when the trial was occurring, she was not supposed to be. And then now all of a sudden she is again. I didn't know you could do a 6 month, spin and then come right back in as the head judge.
So obvious disclaimer in that how they do things in Massachusetts in terms, I have no clue. I still to this day feel in many ways wandering through the courthouse like this, trying to make sense of it. I don't understand why the judges go from county to county, from civil to criminal to back and forth, and how they don't have regular calendar judges for each case, like the way, I mean, they did for Karen, obviously, at some point, but this back and forth between counties and this, and it makes no sense to me. I don't know why it's done. I think it's a terrible setup. What does it mean for the civil case? I don't know. I'm not going to assume it means she's going to be presiding over it. I think that would be troubling for a lot of people if she were, for a lot of reasons. But the truth of the matter is, I have no idea why they would do it. I mean, look,
I don't know why they do that.
Look, I don't know how they do anything. Apparently, I know nothing in Massachusetts because, again, some of my favorite Twitter trolls and anonymous lawyers and whatever think I don't know the difference between a motion and a letter and how to file things and whatnot. Yeah. So you can only laugh about how things are interpreted or how they're done out there. But in terms of the judicial assignment system, do me a favor, when you do figure it out, let me know, because I have zero clue.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put that on my, fuck off Kim list, because there's never going to be, as Tabby XO said, they make up the rules as they go. I'm sure there is a rhyme or reason to it, but I was like, or that there is at least precedent for it, but I'm just like, what the fuck? It blew my mind, because I was like, She just got rotated out of that position. Now she's back. But listen, Judge Doolin, I have a little inside skinny from the Herald. Did you see what came out today? The piece about the Miles King.
I did see how there was a hearing scheduled where Lally and Proctor are finally supposed to testify, which is good. It's a little late. They should have been testifying in front of Cannoni in the motion to dismiss hearing in Karen's case. And I think a lot of things might have been found out at that point. But I did see that in another case where, look, I don't understand how things work in Massachusetts. I don't know how an incarcerated murder defendant, and I have no clue whether the guy's guilty or innocent, and frankly don't care because I don't know enough about it. But
yeah, I don't know the case either.
In jail, pending trial for 3.5 years and not have access to important discovery is disgraceful and should lead to serious sanction up and until dismissal. I mean, look, Massachusetts doesn't even have a speedy trial statute, which is amazing. They have the Constitution has a right to a speedy trial, but that can often take years and years. But New York and other states and the federal government have a speedy trial statute. And if you don't do things in a certain amount of time, these cases get dismissed. Now, murder is exempt in New York, but people like to move stuff along. And the fact that in the Norfolk DA's office, they think it's okay to have some guy rotting in jail for 3.5 years, and for everyone's favorite people, Lally and Proctor, not to disclose critical evidence until a few months ago, while this dude rots in jail waiting trial, shows you the cultural problem that exists in that office and why it needs to be fumigated. This guy may be guilty as hell, but you can't do things that way. Same thing with, even this Brian Walsh thing.
I know.
I mean, look, again, presumption of innocence, all that, but you can't avert your eyes to those Google searches, which are clearly indicative of some degree of guilt. Yet they may have screwed all that up because they play games and fudge facts and lie about consent and warrants and things. And this whole place just needs to be fumigated. I mean, they are jeopardizing murder case after murder case, or not prosecuting the right case, the suicide case allegedly with Sandra Birchmore, or over prosecuting the wrong person, Karen. I mean, you're at a point where every decision they seem to make on a serious case should lead a reasonable person to say, I think 180 degrees in the opposite. And that's crazy to even entertain that thought. But why is every single high profile or important case that you're aware of in that county turning into a full-fledged fiasco? That's totally not normal.
No, and it's shameful, and it's destructive, and it's cultural. Yeah, there is a truly sick and cancerous culture in Norfolk County, in my opinion, and it 100% needs to have a resection, some chemo, and tuck and roll.
And remember, and I know I've talked about this for over a year, part of the problem is the incestuous relationship between having the same state troopers encamped in that office and working every case with your drinking buddies and the people who donate you money and the guys on your text chain. And there's no accountability there. I mean, there's no policing of the police. And everybody's too close, too friendly, too in everybody's pocket. And the whole culture of that office needs to be blown up. And the only way to do that is to get rid of all of them and start over.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I said, because anytime that you even rotate somebody out, Mr. Bederow, I've said this forever, is that they will replace and it will become another cog in the wheel. You have to break the wheel. And that is where, even if you get rid of a couple, it is always going to find its way back to that dirty cycle that they continue to do unless it is blown up.
It is, but they also, you have to change the whole culture in Massachusetts too. I mean, the idea that it is acceptable for lawyers who are basically work for Morrissey and state troopers who essentially work for Morrissey that they are basically election cycle after election cycle kick up to the boss politically is a joke. That should never be allowed. And that's apparently a nothing burger in Massachusetts. That needs to be addressed by the legislature, whoever. I mean, you can't have a situation where the people that you're supposed to supervise and enforce are in your pocket, literally, politically speaking. And I'm not talking donating $30,000 or that kind of stuff, but it's symbolic. It's paying homage. It's kicking up to the boss, where you're used to seeing in other situations, not cops and lawyers to the politician. They're making it all political, and to know who's on board, who can I trust, who's with me, who's not. That's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to do an honest job as a public servant, whatever the facts are, wherever things lead. And then you look at Norfolk County, and it doesn't appear to be happening. So you have to break up the office, and you need to stop allowing these donations between state police and other people in the office who are employed by the political candidate. You can't have that. It's too incestuous.
Yeah, and I think that this has gone on for so long, and for the community that lives there, right? Our residents of Norfolk County, there has been an awakening, and I think that a lot was done behind, in the dark, and it has come to light. Mr.
Listen,
Bederow.
if I was running for DA in that county, these are things I'd be saying. I would be saying, I pledge right now to never take a penny from anyone who works in my office.
Yes.
I think law should be changed. I think they should be explaining how it festers an environment of corruption. And then I think I would be attacking, will Morrissey join me in that pledge? And will you explain why this has been the case from years past? And I don't know why they're not doing it. And people have to understand, most corruption works in the shadows and is very loosey-goosey. It's not literally sliding, manila envelopes of cash across a smoke-filled bar. Usually it's a wink and a nod. It's loosey-goosey, and it's a level of laziness and comfort and sliding. That's how corruption works. And, because everybody likes everyone, you look the other way, you don't want to get involved. That's how it works. And I don't know why the people that are running for DA would not pounce on all of these kinds of issues. I mean, that is a gift of an issue.
Right.
All troublemakers in the state police that they're throwing out, okay, they're all putting money in his pocket. Not all, literally, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
These are the same people on the text chains, and even people in the DA's office. They're donating money. That's not how it's supposed to work at all. It just fosters a culture of corruption. And then look what happens. Look at these cases. It's always the same characters, right? It's the goosey, it's the sliding scale. It's the same people. There's a level of comfort. And I don't see them really criticizing it that much.
No, it's loosey-goosey to me, like a CEO at a Coldplay concert. All right. And up on a Jumbotron with his lady friend of the HR. So yeah, this is just abnormal, obnoxious. Everyone else sees, right? Like where we all see it, and yet you're caressing in the box. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a weird culture that continues, that festers, and must be fumigated. You say it best. You always do with that department and those troopers that have always been able to just stay in that troop, that insulation, that protection, and the over time laziness, negligence is despicable.
What level of comfort, and again, sliding comfort, loosey-goosey, locker room type of environment do you have that you feel comfortable sending text messages about nudes, other things, sending thumbs up, or joking about medical examiners, whack jobs, all that stuff that you've heard that, apparently, the Norfolk DA claims now we can't talk about it anymore because it has to go back to the feds. That's a whole nother thing. But what kind of culture, in law enforcement, do you think, how comfortable do these people have to be? How trusting of them to cover each other's rear ends do you have to be to send those kinds of messages back and forth on a regular basis? The place is a cesspool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Twitter of police departments. Ew. Okay. Can you talk about that or no? What you just said?
Generally,
Go.
it's in the news.
Yeah.
As you saw in the news, apparently, there was a protective order related to the recently acquitted murder case.
Yes.
About materials that can go no farther, right? That need to be destroyed or returned within a certain amount of time. Okay. Now, the problem is none of the defense attorneys who might have an interest in these cases, because as you know, a lot of this involves a certain disgraced, terminated trooper. None of the attorneys who have cases involving these issues were notified until the day before that this was going to happen. So once again, you have to ask yourself, why would the Norfolk DA wait until the last minute? But what I can tell you is this: whatever happens or doesn't happen, a federal court order is a federal court order.
Yes.
There's nothing that a Norfolk County judge is going to do or can do about it. But what I can tell you is this: the district attorney's office has obligations under Brady and Rule 14, right? That are separate and apart from whatever is covered in a protective order.
Okay.
If there are communications, emails, text messages, whatnot, that are on their server or in their possession, custody, or control, they're obligated to disclose it if it's discoverable, if it's exculpatory, if it's favorable. And that is a separate and different issue than any federal court order saying you have to give this back. So if whatever's in their possession, custody, or control that they have access to from their own due diligence that has nothing to do with the feds, they're going to have to turn it over. Okay. And what you could also expect is a flood of TUI requests. That's just going to happen. There's no way around that. Now, again, these are rare times. I've only been involved in one TUI situation in my life, and that's when, an FBI agent who was being falsely accused of murder by the Brooklyn DA, and the feds didn't want them to prosecute, had to give us the Brady material that the Brooklyn DA didn't want to go.
Yes.
Very familiar to what you see with what happened in Karen's case. But now, if the Norfolk DA is taking the appearance of don't blame us, we can't give you any of this material because we're following a federal court order, which, by the way, they have to follow a federal court order before we all pile on them. But the bottom line is they still have to turn over what's in their possession, custody, or control from other channels. And what's going to happen is everybody knows about Proctor and his messages and that sort of thing. And if you can't get that from the state, then what's going to happen is all of these lawyers, some of whom you've seen, not just us, some of whom you've seen represent people on the other side of, the John O'Keefe situation.
Yeah.
Are going to be the same people demanding, where's all the Proctor stuff that we're entitled to? So it's just another example of the larger problem in Norfolk County. The fact that this is even being discussed about how are we going to get access to exculpatory information that could come and show that Proctor was biased, corrupt, whatever. These are conversations that you should never have to have. But, in that county, it appears to be normal.
And this is something that is clearly not only involving the Turtle Boys case. Like there was attorney Rosemary Scapaccio, that's the attorney for Miles King. It's a Milton murder case.
Many cases.
they were saying that they were like, Proctor, you're not going to delete those, or to destroy his text would prevent them from having a fair trial, and that person, that defendant. So like, this is going to be problematic, and giddy up, bitches, because if you think Bradel and Bederow are dapper dudes, stop it. Okay. If they're going to be the ones that are loud, you are going to hear it from like, I feel like the entire mass, the attorney, what is that? What did we do? What's that board that all of you guys, the Mass Bar Association is going to end up saying, like, fuck this noise. I hear what you're saying, but at the end of the day, it should be provided at least to the attorneys like you guys, that you should be able to use in your cases.
We're just soldiers in the Army. There are many, many other soldiers with us. This has nothing to do specifically with Aiden. This has to do with many, many cases. All the lawyers got the same, late notice the day before this was scheduled to happen.
Yeah.
This is much, much bigger than any one case, and is another example of just the overall problem, symbolically speaking, in Norfolk County. And again, whether you want to, whether you want to blame the DA or not, they have a federal court order. They have to follow it, whether you agree with it or not. But of course, all it does is remind everyone of Proctor and all these problems. And none of this is a good thing for the DA's office. And these are other things that I would, candidates ought to be talking about. I mean, they're not very vocal, frankly, about a lot of the issues that I would think would be really compelling to the people who live there. I'm not sure why. I don't know any of them. Obviously, any of them I think would be better, but just feel like they're running very passive campaigns. Not sure why. I don't know what the financial situation is, but there are so many free gifts to really talk to voters and people who don't like the way things are going there, and I feel like they're wasting a lot of those opportunities.
They are. And it doesn't make sense. The moves are shady. I am most disappointed in the silence. I understand Norfolk County, but from Maura Healey, the governor, it is deafening, her silence. That, yes, she's made comments. They're so vague. They're so just bullshit. It's all like just lip service, right? And I think that a lot of us are sick of the lip service. Like, put up or shut up. And you all are allowed and have been able to continue down this path for far too fucking long, in my humble opinion. And now we need change. We need change more than ever for every single Massachusetts resident and their families and the future. Like, this isn't about fucking Karen. This isn't about Aiden. This isn't about Brian Walsh. It is about everything, and the culmination of the history that has come to this point, and whether you are going to change it or you are going to continue down just being a bunch of assholes. And I don't think that I don't think that us as the people are going to allow it to occur.
I don't know. Because they reelect these people again and again.
I know.
I don't know. And I don't know what kind of engagement there is by the people running for DA or whoever's going to run for governor down the line, in terms of raising money, in terms of communicating, in terms of getting their name out there. I don't live there, so I don't follow it that closely, other than what I see. I look at the Globe Metro because I look at the sports. I don't look at anything else in the Globe, but I look at those two, and I just don't get the impression that the people running for DA are like running. They seem to be they seem to be jogging for DA, not running. You know what I mean? Like there's so much ability to raise issues, connect with people, call it whatever you want. But after what happened in Karen's case, what's happening to Birchmore, what's potentially happening in Walsh, what's been happening with all these cops having to be removed. I mean, somebody needs to do something other than issue periodic press releases once every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And there's so many obvious topics to be hit. And by the way, I don't believe that takes, I don't think they have to like spike the football and take a position on any particular criminal case, whether it be over or not. I mean, I'm not, again, to the ombudsmans of the internet, I'm not advocating for a client and saying, you should give a litmus test on whether you would prosecute or not prosecute. So I'll have to put that disclaimer here too. I don't want to offend a lot of the people who think I'm, shilling for clients when I talk about matters of public interest. It's not about that. You have to recognize the issues. I mean, you don't have to say anything other than, the jury has spoken on the Karen Reed case, but look at all the other problems that case raised. There are concerns in certainly Sandra's case.
Oh my gosh.
There are concerns that are going on right now in the Brian Walsh case. You don't have to say, make sure you get him or don't get him. I don't think the candidates have to fanboy with the public and say, I'm going to root for this result, but just recognize all of these problems, the nature of their relationships, the nature of the corruption, the locker room environment that leads to this corruption, the financial arrangements, the case you just saw that was in the Herald today, the Milton case. Perfect issue. Why is this guy in jail waiting trial for 3.5 years without more? That's messed up. But why do they continue to not disclose evidence? I mean, I'd be pounding on this. I would be speaking right now saying, I don't know what this guy did or didn't do, but I'm troubled when people are rotting in jail for 3.5 years and the same cast of characters who did wrong in the Karen Reed case are the same cast of characters in this case who apparently are not disclosing evidence for 3.5 years and pretending that this is normal. It's the exact opposite of normal. And I would change the office by instituting this, and this, and making sure that we're ready for trial in this and disclosing all evidence by this time and da, 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 da. And I don't know why they're not all saying these kinds of things.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
What about even, take the Karen case. It came out recently that the taxpayers are on the hook for about $1 million for this second trial.
Yeah.
Between the special prosecutor and the
566,000. 566.
The special prosecutor and the special experts.
Special paralegal.
And the car that they have to pay for too. But didn't we read something about what a disproportionate amount of their budget was wasted on this and things that aren't happening, other services that aren't available because they're chasing this case? I mean, these are things that just write themselves as issues to say, can it be worse? Why not put somebody different in and at least see if it gets better?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I said, even if you don't, I know Jejuna Perkins is running for the Norfolk County seat. And to be perfectly clear, Morrissey was unopposed for decades.
Well, that's corruption too. You get lazy and you get lazy in power, which also leads to a sliding scale of arrogance, which when you're combined with the wrong people can bleed into corruption.
Yeah. And I said the other night, I go listen, even if she's not your cup of tea, even if she's not the best thing, she's not fucking Morrissey, and we need change. You could vote her out in a couple of years afterwards, but you've got to get rid of him. Okay. And that is the way. And if you can vote for her, then like, all right, then we keep making people work for it. And I also think there should be term limits. Like, why isn't there term limits? Is that just like fucking do it? Sorry, pardon my French.
No, I mean, look, that's a problem here too. I mean,
Oh,
for the longest time, all the New York City DAs had been DA for 20 something years. Now, again, in New York, it's very simple, which I think Massachusetts is similar. You get the Democrat nomination and that's it. I mean,
yeah.
that's you win
Yes.
that, it's over. I mean, there is no Republican Party, certainly not in Manhattan of any note. And, maybe, well, Staten Island, maybe, and certain portions of Queens, but certainly I don't think in Norfolk County, this guy has been unopposed for 20 something years. What do you expect is going to happen? You're going to get this. You're going to get exactly this. Nobody should have an elected official public servant job for 30 years and
40.
never work
Yep.
private sector, never have to be accountable to anyone. You can say, well, you have to be accountable to the voters, and that's true. But if the voting public accepts it, well, then they deserve what they get. I mean, if nobody's willing to run and they just continue to go again and again with these people, then, blame yourself if you allow it. Because he is. I mean, there's no corruption in the election. He's not,
Oh, no.
So, if you don't vote alternatively or don't do anything to change it, then you deserve what you get.
Well, and then at least we got Nurse Deb. What's up, Sister Sledge? Says, happy I'm in Norfolk and I can vote that clown out. Yes, my queen. She's a nurse. She's a Deb. She is voting and not for Michael Morrissey, making those changes. All right. We are replacing a meatball, babe.
It's 1-0 already. See, I mean, there you go. You're on your way.
Look, we're doing it. Facts matter. So that is that. I wanted to ask you, there was several comments in this chat today, Mr. Bederow, about that Arsenal top, your shirt. Give us the background. Are you a Portuguesa?
No, Arsenal is British Premier League. It's London.
Oh.
I am not, first of all, I will not call it football. Sorry, but football is a pigskin NFL. So it's still soccer, which already tells you I'm not that serious. I am not a big, huge soccer fan. I don't know why, but I just like Arsenal casually. Not that interested in it. They're in London. Cool logo, cool name. It's a little different. It's more just window dressing. I am not a lunatic soccer fan. I don't follow or subscribe to any, British Premier League exclusive channels or anything like that. If the World Cup is on, yeah, I'll watch.
Yeah.
For America, obviously, but I'm not going to pretend and tell you that I like soccer that much. But I like Arsenal's shtick and their stuff. That's all.
Okay. I like that.
I'm not a big soccer fan at all.
Yeah, I'm not either. I feel badly because I think that I maybe should be, but I'm not. But I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm going to see, I got tickets for Red Sox Yankees in September.
Okay.
You want to come with me? Let's go.
Maybe. I'm debating whether to go this week in Philadelphia. I like to go to Philadelphia. It's not that far from here. Beautiful state way. If you've never been.
I've never been.
The Phillies park is very nice, but we'll see. They're pissing me off right now after the All-Star break, but whatever. That's par for the course. It's
almost classic. It just is what it is, and we'll figure it out. Well, I have faith.
You can't go into
put your hoodie on. You got to get your new Green Monster hoodie on. That's why you haven't been wearing it.
It's hot here today. It's going to be 90 degrees. So. Yeah.
I'm sweating to the oldies. It's 104 in the freaking heat index here, and it's swamp ass because South Carolina. I'm coming home on Tuesday. Well, whatever, but I am unwell. Okay. Things are sweating that should not be perspiring. I did not know that you were I was like my elbow, everything I am sweating. Sorry.
Well, Southern heat is different.
Oh, it's so different.
Humid Southern heat. The worst humid Southern heat I ever experienced was in Louisiana, where I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I feel like literally I could have cut the air with a knife and it would have.
It's so thick.
Yeah.
Thickums, you know, that air. It's like you can't even breathe. Like, and listen, and then I start thinking to myself, I'm like, bitch, I'm like, do I need an inhaler? Like, what is happening? Because I'm outside and I'm like, I feel like I'm walking in slow-mo. I'm like in the Matrix, but the opposite, right? Like I'm a slow Matrix, just like being like, oh, I hate it. You have to do everything before 10 o'clock in the morning, or you're going to be, murdered by the sun.
Yep.
So anywho, yeah. I know you are going to pick up that boy. You have stayed with me. I appreciate everything about you. Thank you for coming over for brunch with me.
Thank you.
And we will, as always, talk again soon. You are the best to ever do it. Your time is valuable, and you made my Sunday. Thank you, Mr. Bederow.
Thanks for having me. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Oh, loveys. What a Sunday. What a service. And who is our man? Mr. Bederow. You know, that Judge Doolin saying Mr. Bederow changes my spirit. Okay. It affects me in a positive way. Either A, he loves Mr. Bederow just as much as I do, or B, he's caught a Nurse Kim, Mr. Bederow stream. You heard it. Okay. Couple of announcements, loveys, before we leave. One, there are still a couple of tickets to next week. What are we doing? On Saturday, I'm down in Hingham. We're doing a Pearls Clutch Karen Freed show. It's me. It's you. Are we talking all the shit? Yeah. Do we have a special guest? Yeah. It's in the it's in the zoop in the description if you want to go. Anybody who has already, who is coming with me, I love you. I love you, loveys. Thank you for answering my FaceTimes and for wanting to see me in real life. We are going to be, oh no, I lied. I'm going to be sending you an email today with the address of the venue. It's in Hingham. So if you're South Shore and you want to go, I'll see you then. Next Saturday, again, Saturday afternoon event. Then I'm going to be doing Tuesday and Thursday morning shows. Why? I don't know. Just because I said so. I got to get a little bit more like a joot of myself coming on. I've had really great interviews. So thankful for Mr. Bederow's time and for Aiden's time this week. But we've got to talk all the shit with each other. Okay. You know how it is. So that is it. I wish you the best of the rest of your Sunday. And I love your face. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
All right. Great job on the news.
Thank you.
We will, Courtney and I will share what happened when we went to dinner last night, Sunday dinner coming up. And as